back. It's the Two Ordinary Cops. And how are you, Schultzy? You right?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, going well.
That's the mate. I'm in Cops again. It's a little bit cool, a little bit wet, but it's all right. I'm in a motel room again, but that's okay. We're all good.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm a bit interested today. So today's something completely different from what we've ever done. And it's very topical. People really are interested in this sort of thing. We're going to talk to a former Queensland Police Service covert operative or an undercover cop. So in the police, I know you and I both worked in plain clothes, and people go, undercover cops here. There is nothing about undercover in plain clothes. You stand out like the proverbial. There's absolutely no way that you are not being picked as a copper. It's more just that you're able to move through and not create a scene in society. But anyway, obviously it's a very topical thing, and it should be a little bit interesting. So, Schultzy, would you like to introduce our guest for the day?
Yes, mate, I will. And look, this is it's Jason Somerville here, and he does a podcast himself called Whisper in the Shadows. I've listened to every episode. I'm probably one of his biggest fans. I'd like to say I'm one of his biggest fans, but there's some really, really good content and some really funny stuff in there. So, Jason, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Ben, mate, and Damo. Thanks for having me on board.
Pleasure's ours, Jason. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what happened was, Jason, obviously, I think you picked ours up when we advertised it on the Thin Blue Line, and you got in contact with me, and then we decided that we'd actually get each other on each other's shows, so to help promote each other and all that sort of thing. But like Damo said, mate, we didn't have any undercover cops up in Northern Territory because it was too small. Like Damo said before, he said you walk into a pub as undercover and they go, "Oh, Damo, what are you doing, mate? How are you?"
That was just prior to recording, so I don't think the people listening will know what we're talking about, but that's okay. So look, the other thing is, without the ink actually being visible, I have "cop" written across my face, so there is no way in hell I could be an undercover operative. I just get picked in 2 seconds flat.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
But mate, what we'll do is we'll just want to push on. Jason, can you go through a bit like your training, like in coming into the cops and why you got into undercover?
Yeah, sure. And just in regards to something that Damo said, when I first joined the police, I had cop written across my forehead. In fact, I had to buy a new pair of jeans when I started covert work because it had the badge imprint in the back pocket.
Oh, too good.
From when I used to go out.
Oh, too good.
So look, when I was, I've been in the job. So I started in 91, went to covert in 95. So that was 4 years by the time I went. The training was a 3-week course. It was interesting to say the least. The interesting part was the fact that it was actually done at the police academy in Oxley. So you've got all these people who were growing their hair long, having long beards, wearing scruffy clothes, rocking up to the police academy, pretending not to be police.
Too good.
So if any of the bikies were switched on, they would have been sitting there going, okay, well, these are the guys that are going to be working undercover.
Yeah.
So, but what we did is basically we watched Reservoir Dogs. That was the first thing. Yeah. So that was our try. I don't know if you've seen Reservoir Dogs, but that was a training film. And then we just learnt how not to be cops again.
Yeah.
How to do buys. We had people come in and tell us about drugs. We knew what drugs were, obviously, because you did raids and I spent most of my career working in uniform outside of covert, but so you knew what drugs were and those sorts of things, but you didn't know the things like, okay, well, an ounce of heroin costs you this much, and if you split it up and this way, this is how much money you're going to make out of it. The sort of thing you probably needed to know if you were selling drugs.
Yeah.
And if you did know it, there were probably going to be questions asked if you knew that before you went on the course. But so it was all about learning how to do that, learning how to, even down to counting money. Learning how to count money quickly and having it. Learning how one of the things, everything got recorded, and one of the things that I had was I said mate all the time, and every time I said mate in a scenario, so we had to actually do role plays. I don't know what Northern Territory Police were like, but from 91 onwards, we were very big on role plays because it was we were like a university course, and so everything had to be role played. When I did my training to go into the police, that 12 months, just about everything was a role play. Covert was nothing different. It was all role plays, learning how to do things. And during the role plays, if I said "mate" too many times, the one of the sergeants who was acting as the dealer would get out his knife and stab me, because he'd be like, "I'm not your mate."
Yeah.
Right.
That seems a very expensive way to train police, Jason.
It wasn't a real knife. It was one of those prop ones that goes in and out. The first time scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did that. We had other operatives who were currently in the squad would come in and talk about what they'd done. But it was basically just absorbing, all the information that they told us. There was no secret. This is what you do, or do you know what I mean? It was more about stories and that sort of stuff. It was a 3-week course. They did take us out and got us horrendously drunk, and had people come and talk to us that we didn't know to try and find out what we were doing. And the whole thing we've been told prior to is don't tell anyone, that you're on the covert course and that you're a police officer or anything like that, okay? Tonight we're just people out. And so, we were really drunk and girls would come up to you and start talking to you and trying to find out what you do. And there's part of you going, I want to tell you because, and then there's part of you going, oh, hang on, I'm not allowed to. Yeah. And that was a dead set trap. So the second time we sort of did that, I said, no, I'm not drinking. I'll just have some milk, thanks. And so from that time on, every time we went out, I'd always get given a saucer of milk. Yeah, perfect. But it was a 3-week course. Basically, it was just role playing. It was learning how to not be a police officer. That's really what we did, with a couple of nights out to try and make sure that you didn't spill the beans, so to speak, and you were passed on what the other operatives who had been doing it a while thought, whether they thought you were going to get found out. Realistically, if you could think on your feet, if you could not appear to be a copper, not talk like a copper, not looking like a copper, long hair, I grew my hair long, I had a goatee beard, I got my nose pierced. I got tricked into getting my nose pierced, actually, I'll tell that story because that's all part of this covert thing. We were talking about getting things pierced, and we were really, really drunk. And one of the boys said, "I don't know how rude I can be here.
You'd be pretty rude.
He's going to pierce his." He said he was really drunk. He said, "I'm going to pierce my foreskin." And we went, righto. If you do that, we'll buy you a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah.
Anyway, he did it, and we said, "Yeah, okay." Woke up the next morning and it pulled out, and we actually went and bought him a carton of beer.
I was going to say that's pretty cheap.
He was really drunk. But that got us talking, and I said, I want to get my nose pierced. And one of the other boys said, we should really get our ears pierced, blah, 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 blah. So they've said, hey, listen, we've made an appointment at this piercing salon in Brisbane. We'll meet you there at 10 o'clock. Cool. So I've rocked up, and I'm sitting there, and the girls come out and said, you've got an appointment? I said, yeah, for Jason. And she goes, yeah. I said, I'm just waiting for others. She goes, what others?
That was you.
And I said, there's a group of us. There's 4 of us. She goes, no, the appointment was only made for you.
Oh, too good.
And I went,
So it's good to see the old classic stitch-up's been around for a day or two within the job. Yeah.
So I ended up getting my nose pierced. I tell you what, I was on a high for like 3 days.
Yeah, wow.
No drug could have been as good as getting your nose pierced. The endorphins that got released. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I got married shortly after that. And when my then-to-be mother-in-law talked to me, she talked to me like sort of side on. She actually wouldn't look at me when she was talking to me, but she couldn't look at the nose piercing.
Oh, too good. But Jason, one thing I'm really interested to hear is what motivated you to actually go into covert work?
So when I was at school, I was very big into acting. I liked, acting and musicals and all that sort of stuff. I even applied to go to NIDA,
Yeah, wow.
which I don't know if you know what NIDA
Yeah,
is.
yep.
NIDA's the in-acting school
The
to go to,
National
or was at the
Institute of
time.
Dramatic Arts is what NIDA is.
That's the
Yeah.
one. Alumni of,
Sorry, Schultzy.
people like Mel Gibson, Nicole Kidman, Russell Crowe, those sorts of people all went there. Anyway, I didn't get in. And I, it was like, I think Stingers came out at the time as well. And it was like, you know what, that'd be a pretty cool thing to do. I could act, I could pretend to be someone else. And then I was out drinking one night, I had a fight with my then fiance, and in the way on the taxi ride home, the guy offered to sell me drugs, and it all just sort of happened. It was like, well, okay, here's my in. I gave the information. The boys came and saw me the next day. We set up a buy. The covert course was a month after that, and the rest, as they say, is last year's news.
Yeah, wow. So it was a really very spontaneous thing.
Yeah. Joining the police was a spontaneous thing. I tend to do spontaneous things. That's why I've been married twice.
Well, mate, you've got to catch up to me. I've been married and divorced twice.
Oh yeah, no, I've been divorced twice. Yeah. I thought that one was saying.
Bloody hell, you blokes.
Anyway.
So, Jason, going through the training, obviously, so it's a fairly spontaneous way that you've joined into covert work, and you've sort of gone through the first part. So tell us more about how, obviously, you're dealing with professional police who are training you not to be police. So it's something that's... Yeah. I'll just explain very quickly that I know a lot of cops. Actually, an example. Last night, I was over the road at the pub that I'm staying here now. I didn't know the group that walked in. I didn't hear anything police-like, but I just said, I think I'm in a room full of detectives. One of them started to move into the table next to me. This is the New South Wales Police here in Coffs Harbour. And I just said to him, mate, are you guys in the job? And he sort of looked at me funny and went, yeah, are you? Because I've got cop written across my head. And I go, no, but I was. I said, I'm out now, but I was. And I picked them. I picked the whole crowd as a group of police. So we do stand out. We stand out to criminals and we stand out to other cops. So just tell us about that. You've got to hide that.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. And probably the best way to illustrate it is I had a target who had been arrested had been picked up in 2 other raids. He was selling to 4 or 5 undercover coppers at the same time, unfortunately. But he prided himself on picking who the police were. So I'm sitting in this car talking to him, and this conversation is getting recorded. And he said, mate, I've actually just gone and picked him up from the police station. And we're sitting around there, and I've given him a bollocking because I said, dude, you don't get me to pick you up from the police station if I'm buying drugs from you, because I don't want to get picked up. Anyway, he said to me, oh, yeah, listen, I just need to talk to you. And I said, what? He said, I need to ask you a question. My solicitor said that if I ask you this question and you say no, then everything's good for me. And I went, dude, what are you talking about? He said, are you a copper? And I went, no. Do I look like a copper? Don't be fucking stupid. I'm not a copper. Yep. He's going, no, I didn't think you were either. But, if you'd said no, if you are and you'd said no, then anything we do doesn't pass as being evidence. And I said, oh, wow, cool. That's pretty good. Now, what I've actually, well, there's no substitute for stupidity, is there? But the thing I found interesting was, like you, I can pick coppers from a mile away. People can pick me as a copper from a mile away. For some reason, if you're pretending not to be a copper, and yes, I had long hair, and yes, I had a long goatee beard, but all you have to say to them is, mate, I'm not a copper. People want to hear reassurance of what they believe.
Yeah.
That's why our politicians are so good at what they do. People want to hear reassurance of what they believe. So he believed I wasn't a copper. He just wanted me to tell him that.
Yeah. Very basic human psychology, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's not as hard as what you think. Like in my podcast, one of the interviews that I've had with a guy, he's still currently working undercover and working uniform at the same time.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
That kind of seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, now it's in Canada, so I don't quite know how they do it up there.
Yeah.
Maybe the moose don't know him, but but what it shows is that you don't necessarily. It's all about. If I think I'm not a policeman, everyone else is going to think I'm not a policeman because that's the way I carry myself.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's like acting. It's like you watch a Mel Gibson film. You watch Mad Max. He's Max.
Yeah.
You know, you watch him in that stupid cop movie franchise he did. He's that person. You know he's Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he portrays that, and that's what working undercover really is. It's acting and portraying, not being a cop. The danger comes when you start to believe it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, that probably segues nicely, mate. Can you just go into? I know I've listened to your podcast and all that sort of thing, and you had a couple of people that you recognised and you thought they might recognise you. So there was a couple of times when you went, into an operation, and it got a bit hairy about whether you get identified or not. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, sure. So one of the operations I did, my informant was actually a girl I went to school with. Now, she was a couple of years, so I would have been 25, 26. She, at that time that I did the job, she was a couple of years younger than me, so she was the same age as my brother.
Yeah, wow.
Which at school turned out to be the year below because I repeated grade 12 because I repeated grade 11 because I was stupid. And I was a prefect. And so I don't know if you know what prefects, how that.
Yeah, like a school leader. Yeah.
We'd stand on the gate.
Yep.
Yeah, we'd stand on the gate when people came to and from school to make sure they were wearing. Girls had their berets on and their skirts weren't hiked all the way up to their hoo-has, and they weren't wearing black stockings and all that sort of stuff. And the boys had their ties on and shirts tucked in, all that, socks up. So she'd come through my gate every day. Every day it'd be, hey. I'll use the name I used in the book, in the podcast. Susan, put your beret on, put your tie on, roll your skirt down every single day for a year.
Yeah, wow.
So, now she was my informant. She had no idea who I was.
Wow.
At all. None.
Drugs are bad, kids.
So
Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah.
I said to her, hey, do you know Chris Somerville, who's my brother? And she goes, I didn't say he's my brother. I said, do you know a mate of mine, Chris Somerville? Because we were talking about where we're grown up. And she goes, yeah. But his brother, he was a real CUNT.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, was he?
There you go.
And she was talking about me.
Oh. Wow.
No, I mean that shows basically how. I mean, you obviously played the role pretty well because talking to someone who actually was talking about you and not realising it was you.
Yeah. And not realising, but again, they were drugs are bad.
Yeah.
And then in that job, I actually bought drugs. So there was a boyfriend and girlfriend. The boyfriend used to bully me at high school in grade 8 and 9, as in virtually at least once a week, try and punch my head in. And the girlfriend was in the group that I hung around with at school, at high school. So her friends and my friends were the same group. We literally sat together at lunches, at big lunch and little lunch or whatever it's called. And she had no idea. He had no idea. Obviously, they probably had an idea after they got arrested, but they had no idea.
Hey, mate, I'll just throw in there. That was a bit of a payback for the guy that used to bully you to it, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yes, it was. But even in uniform, I pulled a guy over one night, 2 o'clock in the morning, walking down the side of a street. It's like, okay, dude, what are you doing really? So we've pulled him over and he's talking to us. And I've said to him, hey, Mark. And he's gone, yes. And I've gone, do you know me? You don't recognise me. He's looked at me and I don't know about you guys, but we had to have our names on our badges because, everyone wanted to know who you were.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he's gone, I said, dude, we went to school together. He goes, oh, yes, Mr. Somerville.
Wow.
And I was like, he had no idea. He just had no idea who I was.
It's funny you say that because I've got a couple of similar things that I've seen. When I worked in the drug squad out of Catherine, so with the substance abuse intelligence desk is what we were called. We drove around in unmarked Prados, and if you've ever been to the Northern Territory, if you drive a white Hilux or a white Prado, nobody sees you because everyone drives a white Hilux or a white Prado. So for those playing along at home, urban camouflage these days is a high-vis shirt. So my partner and I lit up. We pulled over a car in an unmarked Prado with little red and blue lights flashing all over it. I was driving. My partner was in the passenger seat. We were wearing Kmart bought high-vis polo shirts with a Glock hanging off our hip and just cargo pants, just jeans or cargo pants. And we walked up to the door, and I knew they sort of knew, but they're looking past me for the police officer. It's just amazing how the brain works because people are thinking I've been pulled over. They've got a certain, and this is for drug. We're tipping me up. We're going to search the car for drugs. So it just amazed me how the psychology of that. Oh, what's this tradie doing? There's some copper about to walk up, and it's just amazing how the brain works.
And look, and it is. And the other thing is that we can pick a copper because we have certain traits that we do that the coppers do. You know when they're together, you see how they react and those sorts of things. The general public don't.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
They see a uniform or they see a blue light or they see something like that, and that triggers, oh, that's a copper. So that's how, what we were being taught was how to be confident in not being a copper. We weren't actually being taught how not to be coppers because, part of the role was you were a copper and you actually had to, make sure that these people who were doing the wrong thing got caught.
Yeah.
But you just... it was how to be confident not being a copper and how to sort of do that. That was the main thing because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
That and writing notes.
Of course. Well, that's universal, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Transcribe. You learn how to speak properly because transcribe. Maybe that's why I got the microphone because I spent so many years transcribing notes from a really crappy tape recorder.
Yeah, no doubt. Jason, I'm really interested. I'm sure the viewers, I'm sure everyone listening along is really interested to hear. Tell us, obviously, you're not dealing with the nicest people, and we all know that, especially higher up within the drug world, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of violence. We all hear about on the news the murders of people that are all drug related. So, can you go into any times where you thought, this is not good, or I'm in over my head here?
Yeah, sure. Luckily for me, it didn't happen a lot. But there was one particular time that stands out. So I was buying drugs from a low-level dealer, and I was buying a gram, and it was getting nowhere. And so I said to my controller, "Listen, I'm just going to put it on her to say, introduce me to the next step up." So I rang her up and I said, "Hey, I'll give you $2,000 to introduce me to who you're getting it from because this just isn't working for me. I need more gear and you can't supply it." And so she had to think about it. She called me back and she said, "Yep, we're on." And I went, "Okay, that was too easy." The meet was set up. Now, what was going to happen is it was going to happen in a car park. Surveillance was was set up around the area to film it. I'd parked my car. I had my gun under my seat. Everyone was going to get into my car. We were going to do the deal in my car. It was mic'd up. She turns up and she goes, you got to come with me. I'm going, what do you mean? We're meeting here, aren't we? And she's gone, no, he's changed. We're going to go meet him somewhere else. He's out doing something. And I said, but no,
Yeah.
no. And I had a choice. So I was actually in the car and I had a choice. Do I take the gun? If I had have taken my gun and put it down the back of my stride, she probably would have seen it and there would have been, hey, what are we doing? So I've left the gun in the car, closed the door and thought to myself, oh, I hope the boys picked up that we're going somewhere else. I jump in her car, we drive off. Now, where I was buying drugs for that job, I was actually in the area I grew up in. So I knew the area really well. So I could sort of say things like, so we're going past a bowls club. And I said, oh, my nan used to play bowls there, at the bowls club. Why are we going this way? So they'd know, where we turned off.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we turned into the street that my best mate at school lived in. And we actually literally parked right outside his house.
Wow.
Or his dad's house. And I thought, there was a brief moment where I thought, geez, I knew his dad was doing it tough, but I didn't think he was selling heroin. Anyway.
That's so good.
Yeah. So I was buying a half an ounce. So it was about $6,500.
Yeah.
So I had $6,500 on me. We pull up. The back door opens. Now, I didn't see anyone walk in or anything like that. The back door opens, and I go to turn around. It was like, no, don't turn around and look at me. I was like, all right then, fair enough. That's a bit strange. So he introduced himself, and I introduced myself, and all that sort of stuff. And he said, do you have the money? I said, yes, mate. Do you have the gear? He said, yep, give me the money. And I was like, no, show me the gear.
Yeah.
And he said, mate, you called for this, you give me the money. So, all right, so I've reached over and handed the money back back over the thing. So he was literally sitting behind me. I was in the front passenger seat and he was sitting in the seat behind me.
Yeah, wow.
In the back passenger seat. So I've handed it over the back and he's gone, okay, here's the gear, put your hand out. And so I've put my hand out sort of behind me and he's gone to put it and he's dropped it. And I felt it hit my hand, but it's fallen into the seat well behind the driver.
Yeah.
And I've gone to myself, oh, he's gone, oh, sorry, mate, I didn't want fingerprints on it. You're going to have to lean across and pick it up.
Yeah, wow.
I thought to myself, there's something dodgy here. This just isn't right. I could see myself leaning over, because I don't know if you've ever sat in the front passenger side or the driver's side and had to lean into the back footwell of the seat on the other side. But you're exposed. It's not the easiest thing to do. So I'm leaning across, and I was doing the old 5 cent, 50 cent, which is
explain that for the viewers or for the listeners.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. So everyone's heard the phrase "shitting yourself" or puckering.
Yep.
This is just another way of saying it. So
Yeah.
Non-police don't really know what you're talking about.
No.
But yeah, I thought to myself, he is going to whack me here. I'm going to get a bullet to the back of the brain. I'm going to get smacked on the back of the head, something like that. I thought it was going to be a rip. They were going to take the money. Something was going to happen. Anyway, I've leaned across, picked up the drugs, sat back down, thought to myself, oh, thank fuck for that.
Yeah.
And he's gone, you've got my number? I've said no. He said, the dealer will give it to you. I think it was Tracy. I think I used the name Tracy in my story. It wasn't her real name.
Yeah.
And you'll give me a call in 2 days' time and letting me know how it went. Got out of the car and we drove off.
Yeah,
Wow. That's pretty
now that wasn't recorded, and the other thing is that surveillance didn't record it because there was one other car parked in the street. So there was nowhere for them to park.
No.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know at the time that there was no one watching my ass, but if I had have,
Oh, wow.
I might have been a little bit more sort of, yeah.
So I'll just break down what you've said there. Like we've been in situations where we've thought this is not good, this is very bad, but we were very obviously the police. Like there was no, oh, I'm not the police to this guy. I'm just some druggie who's trying to buy some crap. And this guy, who knows what paranoia is going through his head. So to me, that's a whole new level of fear. Like we've spoken about in other episodes, we've gone, oh, geez, we're outnumbered, we're outgunned, we're going to get hurt. But if they're going to attack us, they're attacking the police force. They're not just attacking me. Whereas you're in there, no, they don't know you're the police force. So who are
Well,
you?
no, that's the point of being undercover. Yeah.
Exactly right. So to me, that level of that's a whole different feeling to me. I can honestly say I don't think I felt that.
It's interesting because that feeling bled out pretty quickly because it was you know what, I've got this guy now.
Yeah, yeah,
As it turns out, it was such a good buy that he was going to return back to Cabramatta and he wanted me to run his drug business in Queensland.
yeah. Perfect. Well, you should have told that to the Queensland Police Union. You might have got a raise, mate.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I just waited for him to get out of jail. Oh, no, that's not right, is it? No.
Oh, that's a cracker, mate. I just want to one of the other stories I really enjoyed was the fact that you had a guy that was basically stuffing you around and all that, and I believe you pulled your gun out at one point in a car park. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so he was my informant, and so the informant they get pinched or they get arrested for drugs of some sort, and what then happens is they go, I can introduce you to everyone, and so he was introducing me to people, and there was this one particular person that I wanted to get introduced to, but what they do is they also see it as a way to get drugs. Now, we don't give them drugs, obviously, because that's illegal. But what they will do is they'll introduce you, but they'll do the buy first a couple of times. And what they'll do is they'll scrape a bit out of the packet.
Yeah.
So that's two things. One, they get their hit for the day, and they've screwed over the police. But the other thing is that you're saying, oh, I've bought 0.1 of a gram, and it's 0.09, you get into court and you got some smart ass barrister who says, you said it was 0.1 of a gram, why is it only 0.09? And you can't really go, oh, because the informant stole it, because that gives the informant away. Anyway, so we're dealing with this woman, and I've said to him, mate, this is going to stop. You're just going to introduce me. You're going to do it now. And we were in the car park of a hotel on the east side of Brisbane, and it was one of those hotels that had sawdust on the floors.
Yeah.
So it was a top class establishment, and and I said to him, "I'm not joking with you. You're going to introduce me to her now." He said, "Yeah, not a problem." And anyway, he's gone over, and you could see him looking back at me and blah blah blah, and he's come back. She's driven off, and I have just gone ballistic, and I've pulled the gun out of the back of my hand, out of the back of my pants, shoved it in his mouth, and said, "If you do that again, I'm going to fucking shoot you and bury you in a hole. You are not to do that. I've had enough." Yeah. And the look of his face was like, "Oh my God, I've got a gun in my mouth." But the funny thing was that, you know, there's a major shopping centre right across the road from this car park. It's on the intersection of two major arterial roads. Yeah. No one called the police.
Yeah, wow.
It's like, oh, that happens every day.
Of course it does.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look, it was. I made sure the safety was on.
Oh, that's good of you, mate.
Yeah. Oh, it's safety first, mate. Safety first.
Yeah.
But, you know, it gets to that point where you've got to say to some of these people, listen, stop jerking me around. You're in this because, you know, you did stuff. Yeah. You're only going to get out of jail free card if you actually do what you tell me you're going to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mate,
that's right.
mate, it's just such a foreign world. I mean, obviously we're aware of it. There is physical surveillance in the territory. I'm certainly not going to give away their locations, give away their how they do business. But the one thing I will say is that you will not pick them. You will not pick who the physical surveillance operatives are. They are the mum picking up the kids from the school. They are the old fella buying a newspaper from the shop. And there's 1,000 of them, so you're not going to pick them. And I found that really impressive, that they were able to blend in so well and be the last person in the room who was the copper. And that's what I found really impressive. And during my time, especially conducting some pretty high-end investigations, homicides and things like that, I found the product that they were able to deliver was absolutely unbelievable. Like things that we just didn't even... We were expecting a long-range photograph of something. I remember we had a phone recording of a conversation with a woman who we knew had was involved in a homicide anyway. And we had her face, we had a friend's face recorded on an iPhone from about 3 meters away inside a cafe. Just absolutely incredible. But I mean, we're getting through the hours a bit. I could talk to you for about 15 hours straight, Jason. But I mean, we do need to constrain these things a little bit.
Yep.
So I think we'll finish off. And if you don't mind, can you go through like some of the funniest stuff that you would have dealt with as a UCO?
Yeah. So just that whole thing about not picking that these people are cops. The boys we all went out one night, and when we went out. There may or may not have been some informants who got cash that night. And we used to have big nights. The old beer coaster with "I have given you $100, sign here." Anyway, so we hang on. Is it past that point where you're not allowed to get charged?
What,
no.
Statute of limitations. Depends what you're about to say, Jason. Depends what you're about to say.
Anyway, we're all out drinking, and this girl has come up and started talking to us. Well, we may have gone, I don't know. There was a group of people and we were talking, and this one girl has sort of said to us, "Oh, what do you do?" And the guy she was with, we knew not that as police, but as the group, because he used to sell drugs in the pub there. So we knew he was selling drugs, and we said, "Oh, something like your mate, but don't talk to us about it." She goes, "Oh, you probably shouldn't tell me about that." We've gone, "Righto, why shouldn't we tell you about that?" And she goes, "Oh, because my brother's a policeman." And we went, "Oh, okay, we'll remember that." She goes, "Yeah, but he's not just any policeman." And we went, "He's a commissioner?" No, he works. He's an undercover policeman.
Oh.
And we've gone, "Really? Wow." Now, we knew everyone that worked in the covert squad.
Yeah.
None of them had a sister, especially none of them had a sister that looked like that, that's for sure. And so we're talking to her about this fact that her brother, who is this undercover copper, could come and arrest us at any time, not knowing that she was talking to 6 undercover coppers.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. I just love it.
So, people aren't the smartest. And like I said, just some of the dumb things that the targets would do, like old mate Buzz, 4 or 5 operations. He was selling to 4 or 5 different undercovers in the space of 3 months.
Get another job, champ. You're no good at this.
No, that's right.
You are literally, not only has one undercover cop got you, you've been done by 5. Seriously.
Yes. What's even funnier is he told his supplier that he didn't want to deal with me anymore because, look, I really think Mick's an undercover cop, because Mick was my pseudonym, my false name. Anyway, the guy that was his supplier said to me on the day of the bust, "Oh, mate, Buzz doesn't know what he's talking about. You're not a copper. I know that. I'm happy to sell you." Just as the police car comes screaming up behind him to grab him.
Oh.
And he said to me, he's chucked the drugs in the car and said, "Mate, go, piss off." And said to him, said to the coppers as they turned up, "Oh, you've just missed Mr. Big. He's just driven off."
Oh, too good. I love it.
So they're probably two or three of the more stupidest things that have happened. Working undercover,
mate. I love it.
Yeah, mate.
Sorry, Schultzy. I'll just cover one little thing where I was exposed to an undercover operative in Queensland before I joined the police. I did security in Toowoomba when I was at uni, and Monday night was what do they call it? Industry night. And there was one of the pubs in town that all the local bar staff and everything would go to on a Monday night, and I was the one bouncer there because nothing ever happened. It was all the industry guys. But what did happen was a lot of drug dealing. So anyway, there was always this bloke who was there, and he just sat in the corner quietly, and he wore a Toowoomba City Council work shirt, and he always had dirty hands, and just an old dude, friendly enough, all the rest of it. And anyway, we all got to know him, and he became a little bit of an icon of the pub because everyone's like, "Oh, such and such," and he sort of was in with the young guys and all the rest of it. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his rank. Rank eventually. Yeah. So what happened was he brought down the entire syndicate that was running. And look, we're not talking really high-end bikey stuff. We're talking just the low-end guys on the street who were selling lots and lots of ecstasy to the crowds in Toowoomba at the time. This is like 05, 06. And yeah, this old fella from the Toowoomba City Council who no one would have picked. And yep, it turns out he was the boy, and he got them all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my little exposure to it.
Yeah, I was going to say small town jobs are always good. I'm wary of time. But
Yeah, no,
one of
you're
the
right.
things,
Yeah, go for it.
So I was in a small country town. Actually, I can tell you guys, it was Kingaroy.
Yeah.
So if anyone's listening and has listened to my podcast,
my hometown.
the job I'm talking about is Kingaroy, the Club Hotel, and so they used to have a guy that sang. That was a musician. He'd play and sing songs. So I've just berated the informant about not giving me any information. I'm walking to the toilets, and there had been an undercover operation there 15 years before I was there, and he wrote a song about it.
Oh wow!
And as I walk past him, the line goes something along like, "And there's the fucking narc,"
No.
and I've just stopped. And I had to say to myself, "No, keep walking." Every single time I walked past him to go to the toilet from that night on, he was playing that bloody song.
Oh, that's not good. That is not good.
And no one knew who I was. Well, the informant did, but it was just small things like that. So small country towns.
Oh yeah. So we can go for a little bit. Like I would think that would be very difficult. Actually, just a little segue again. When I was in that drug squad in Katherine, I'd worked in Tennant Creek previously for 2.5 years, and I'd gone back to Katherine to join this substance abuse intelligence desk. Anyway, we always wore high vis or work clothes. We weren't trying to be undercover. We weren't trying to hide at all. We were armed the whole time. It was not undercover by any means, but we did grow our hair a little bit longer. We were a little bit scruffy, and it was more just to put people at ease a little bit.
It was Katherine, wasn't it?
It was Katherine. Was Katherine. So anyway, we were back in Tennant Creek because we had a border operation that we were going to do, which is more out at Avon Downs, but we were basing ourselves out of Tennant Creek. And I walked into the Memorial Club in Tennant for lunch, so we weren't even drinking. We were armed. We were still there. I was just having a bloody lemon squash and having a feed. And anyway, all the locals are sort of looking. I'm saying g'day to them all. And then they walk over, and one of the old electricians, who was a really good mate, he comes over and goes, "Mate, what are you blokes up to?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, look, you're undercover. Like you." I was like, "Mate, you know who I am. Everyone in this pub knows who I am. You see that Glock pistol hanging off my hip? Do you think I'd be wearing that?" He's like, "No, yeah, we're drug squad, but we're doing a very overt operation on the border. He's like, what's a high vision? Why are you long hair?" It's like, because I'm allowed to. Why wouldn't I?
It's funny that when I left COVID, I went and worked in Brisbane City, and we had a very popular backpackers, the Palace Backpackers. Now, they were notorious for letting anyone in and selling anyone booze, and then the drug dealers would send them things. So we were doing a liquor licensing raid that night.
Yeah.
So we were all wearing plain clothes, but we weren't allowed to wear plain clothes accoutrements.
Yeah.
So I had to wear the belt.
Yeah.
And back in those days, Queensland, we had the Glock, so we had that special holster that you didn't, and stuck out, 9 feet one side, and you had all the pouches and stuff. So we were all wearing our shirts over the belt. We rocked up to the bouncer at the thing, and we said, "Mate, Queensland Police were coming in. Prove that you're police." Said, "Dude, I'm wearing a gun belt and a gun. Do you really think?" He said, "Oh yeah, but it's covered." And I said, "Yes, but I'm wearing a gun belt and a gun. Do you really think that anyone else is going to be walking around Brisbane wearing, and look at these three, they've got gun belts on too." "Oh yeah, but I don't believe you unless you show me your badge."
I'm more concerned he was about to let a pack of armed criminals into the bar and didn't give a rat's ass.
I was going to say he was probably scared we were going to rob the drug dealer that was in there that he probably got his cut from.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I love it.
Oh dear. Mate, but can we, before we finish up, mate, there is one story that really, really made me laugh. And it was the fact when you were working undercover and you had to act as a gay guy and you were going into strip clubs.
Yes.
Can you just run me through that one? Because I reckon that your cover was almost blowing, I believe.
It was. So the informant was gay. In today's society, he would probably identify as being transgender.
Yeah.
Had a female name. He was definitely a bottom, and he even spoke effluent. No, not effluent. That's the shit that comes out, isn't
Affluently,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, femininely.
It,
So and he wore dresses and things like that. Anyway, where he lived, where they lived, all the strippers lived
yeah, well,
from all the strip clubs. Now they managed strip clubs throughout the valley, and they would just go out there. So to introduce me to the scene, to make sure that everyone knew who I was, so it didn't come across as strange as me being introduced to everyone. They Betty was their name. Betty took me to strip clubs. Now, the first time we've gone there, it was the old Red Garter in Brisbane, and we've gone in there, and there's all these girls that are wearing not much clothing, and they've come and thrown themselves all over Betty, and Betty's gone, "Oh, this is my new boy toy, this is Michael," and they've gone, "Oh, hello," and they've started throwing themselves over me and rubbing themselves on me and things like that. And I was, 26 or something or other.
wow.
I'd been married, so it was sparse, and
Oh no.
and
Yeah.
I had a certain physiological reaction.
Oh, I love it.
And the girls have gone off, and we've gone inside, and we're sitting down, and Betty said, "Do you want me to do something about that?" And I've gone, "What?" She goes, "Well, there's not a gun in your pocket."
Oh,
And
no.
she goes, "You're supposed to be gay. Gay men don't get excited by naked women." I said, "Can I be bi?"
Oh, no.
And
Yeah.
so we changed the story to the fact that I was bi, because there was no way I was not going to have a physiological reaction every time I went into the because the girls were naked. You'd be walking into the rooms, they'd be naked, they'd hug you, all those sorts of things. I was living every bloke's dream, except I was gay or bi. So yeah,
So
it was
I
very
just love
interesting.
the briefing to the superintendent. It's like, "Sir, it was an operational requirement." Yeah, I think that'll be excellent. Oh, too good.
Well, see, luckily, the terms of the operation were that I had to actually infiltrate the strip clubs. So what made it even worse is I'd gone to another club, and I had one of the girls there who was her first night, and she came and gave me a lap dance. Now, she'd never given a lap dance before, and she got a little bit turned on by
Oh
it.
dear.
So whereas you're not supposed to touch the punter, she was doing a lot of bumping and grinding, so much so that the floor manager actually had to come and grab her and take her off. Now, again, I had that physiological response, but by then they knew that I was bi.
Oh, so it was all perfectly legitimate, so no problem at all. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
No,
Well-
and Betty's come out from the back and gone, "Okay, it's happened again, has it?" And I said, "Well, it wasn't me."
Oh, I do like it. I do. Look, Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love the fact that we've sort of gone through the training and some of the serious stuff, but what we do a lot is we talk about funny things. And I mean, undercover covert operations are very serious. They're very dangerous. They would obviously have a massive mental toll. But what I'm loving is the fact that there's this theme across jurisdictions and across countries where police all have a sense of humour and a rough sense of humour, just quietly. So I love that we've put that across, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I think we're going to have to speak again. I can't say I've ever had a lap dance off duty. In fact, I haven't had one in about 20 years. But
well, the funny thing is, I was on duty as well.
On duty,
so
sorry.
technically-
On duty is what I meant. On
Yeah,
duty.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just saying earlier, mate. I'll just throw something in there. I mean, you said you had to go into. I can't remember what word you used, but you could have said something slightly worse and said I had to penetrate bloody strip clubs.
Oh, my grandmother listens to these podcasts, Schultz. You got to be careful.
Yeah, well, you can imagine some of the jokes I got when everyone found out that my cover was as firstly the gay boyfriend, the gay toy boy of the informant.
Oh, too good.
Um,
I'm going to leave that
yes.
alone, but I can think of a million things that I would have said as a controller in that situation.
Well, the thing was, the two main targets were both sleeping with the informant. They were brothers, and neither of them knew that the other one was.
Oh,
So I had that was going to be the only way, because they were Croatian or Serbian or something or other, and they only congregated in their
in their group.
cultural groups. They didn't mix outside that. So
Yeah.
that's what I had to do. My biggest concern was that they thought I was going to sleep with them as well.
Yeah.
But
Wow. And on that note, no, look, Jason,
I was going to say, look, thanks.
Sorry, you go, mate.
Thanks for having me on, and I'll have to have you both on my podcast. If I can give a bit of a plug to what my podcast is evolving into.
Absolutely, go for it.
Of course, yeah, go for it, mate.
So it's still under the Whisper in the Shadows podcast moniker, but I'm calling it Behind the Thin Blue Line, having conversations with current or ex-coppers and talking about just kind of what you guys are, the sorts of things they did in the job, but then sort of trying to delve into how the job has affected them and some of those sorts of things around that PTSD to sort of raise awareness. So if people are police and they listen to it, they can go, actually, yeah, that rings a bell, and they can go and seek help. Or if it's the public who are listening because they like stupid stories, that they get a bit of an understanding that the way the police officer is interacting with you today is because of something that might have happened 10 minutes ago that you don't know about, which has been traumatic and has affected their psyche or whatever.
Yep.
So it's not just because they're a prick. There could be other reasons in regards to they've just been at a dead infant for the last 3 hours, and you're the first person that's done something stupid in front of them and they've pulled you over. And unfortunately, you've said something and that's come out. And to get that understanding across. And then also to talk about what people do when they leave the police, because there's a lot of that going on. It's very topical in police social groups, talking about what happens. I've been out of the job since 2003, 2004.
Wow, yeah.
2003.
Yeah.
So, that's 21 years. But a lot of people don't know how to find another job. So talking to the coppers about how they made that transition to try and help them do that as well. So that's why I call it Behind the Thin Blue Line, just to give that sort of understanding.
Yeah.
So I'll have to have you both on that at some stage.
Absolutely, mate.
Oh, mate, it'd be a pleasure, mate. And look for everybody listening, I have listened to all of them, and there are some hilarious stories, and you go to far more in depth than what you have, in this short episode. But give it a listen. Whisper in the Shadows.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the fact that you've spoken about it. There's a few similarities there, like you've spoken about a few things which are all what we're on about too. So, mate, it's been a pleasure, and we'll wrap it up. And once again, to all the listeners, get in touch with us. Let us know what you want. I mean, I'm very interested in undercover stuff. I've never done it. I haven't been exposed to a lot of it. It's been an absolute pleasure, Jason. So, what do you reckon, Schultzy? That's the 2 Ordinary Cops for this week, mate.
Signing off. We'll see you next time.
All the best.